It was a late afternoon when Andrew Turner, billionaire CEO of Turner Enterprises, sat in his luxurious penthouse overlooking the glittering skyline of New York City. His empire, built on decades of hard work and trust, was untouchable. Or so he thought. But today something didn't feel right. In his hands, a letter from his late father. A letter that had been sealed for years. It wasn't until his father's passing that Andrew uncovered it, buried beneath old documents. He opened it, expecting a final message of wisdom, but instead found a chilling revelation that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his family. The truth was about to be exposed. If you want to know what happens next, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring these powerful stories. Now let's dive into the truth. Andrew Turner sat in his office, staring at the skyline of New York City. His fingers hovered over the edge of the letter, a coldness spreading through him as he reread the words written by his late father. He had always prided himself on being a man of intellect, a leader who built his empire from scratch. But this letter, this was a revelation he wasn't prepared for. The letter, filled with hidden truths, had been waiting for him all this time. His father's handwriting was unmistakable, but the words, they were not what he expected. Andrew, I need to tell you something. Something I've kept from you for years. It's about the company, the people you trust the most. They are not who you think they are. Andrew's heart sank as the words sank in. His family, his own flesh and blood, had been conspiring against him, betrayed by those closest to him. The letter continued. Your mother, your brother, and your sister, they've been working together behind your back. You have no idea what they've been doing while you've been too focused on business. They've been taking what's yours, and soon you'll realize everything you've built has been built on lies. Andrew's mind raced. He felt sick, betrayed. How could they do this to him? After everything he had done for them, for the company, they were plotting behind his back? He had to confront them. He had to know the truth. The next evening, Andrew sat across from his family, his mother, Eleanor, his brother, Charles, and his sister, Lily, at the dinner table. The quiet hum of their voices seemed to carry the weight of their unspoken secrets. You've been quiet tonight, Andrew, his mother said, her voice calm and collected as always. Andrew felt his blood boil, but he remained composed. I've been thinking about a lot of things, he said, his eyes fixed on his mother. Things I should have known about long ago. Eleanor smiled gently, trying to mask the growing tension. I'm sure it's nothing. You worked too hard, darling. Andrew slammed the letter onto the table, the sound echoing in the room. No more lies, he said, his voice cold. I know everything. The money, the deals, the lies you've been hiding from me. The room went silent. Eleanor's face fell, her mask slipping for a moment. Charles shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and Lily remained still, eyes locked on her plate. Andrew stood up, towering over the table. His heart pounded in his chest as he looked at the people he had always trusted. Why? He demanded. Why didn't you tell me? Why keep this from me? His mother's eyes softened, but the sadness in them was not enough to hide the guilt that lingered beneath the surface. We were protecting you, Andrew. You were so focused on building the business, we didn't want to distract you with these complications. Charles leaned forward, his expression tense. It's just business, Andrew. You wouldn't understand. We've been doing what's best for the company. Andrew's fists clenched. For the company? Or for you? You think you've been looking out for me, but all you've done is use me. Use my name. My reputation. Eleanor's voice cracked as she stood up, her hands shaking. I did what I had to do. We did it for the family, for you. We wanted to ensure our legacy. Andrew's eyes widened in disbelief. You've been taking from me behind my back for years, and you call that protecting me? His mind was racing, the walls closing in. The truth had been in front of him all along. His family had been exploiting him, using his trust to line their pockets. What is it that you've been doing? Andrew asked, his voice shaking with rage. You've been siphoning money, making deals without me. What were you planning to do with it all? Eleanor stood still, her hands pressed together in front of her. We were building a future. A future without you, Andrew. You've always been so busy with your empire, You never saw the cracks in the foundation. Charles nodded, his voice cold. We didn't need you anymore. Not for the decisions that truly mattered. Andrew felt his world crumble around him. The empire he'd worked for, the family he trusted, it was all a lie. As Andrew stood there, his mind clouded with anger and disbelief, the doorbell rang. He turned toward the door, his heart pounding in his chest. Who could it be? He opened the door to find Agent Park standing on the other side. She was the investigator who had been looking into Andrew's business dealings for months, but what she had to say next would change everything. I need to speak with you, Mr. Turner, Agent Park said, her voice steady, but there was a sense of urgency in her eyes. It's about your family. The tension in the room was thick, almost suffocating. Agent Park stepped inside, her expression grim. Andrew had barely processed what had just transpired with his family before this new arrival, the last person he expected to see. His mind was still reeling from the betrayal, his family's callous disregard for him and his work. But now there was a new twist, one that left Andrew more confused and on edge than ever. What could be worse than what I've already learned? He thought as he gestured for Agent Park to sit. I know you've just discovered a lot about your family, she began, her voice steady yet laden with something darker. But this goes beyond what you've uncovered so far. Andrew felt his breath catch in his throat. The last few hours had been a blur of emotions, anger, shock, betrayal, but now as he sat facing this woman, a strange chill settled over him. What are you talking about? Andrew asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as though the room itself might swallow his words. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was there more? Could his world be about to implode again? Agent Park didn't answer immediately. She pulled out a folder, placing it in front of him. The folder was thick, and its edges were worn as if it had been handled many times. She opened it, revealing a series of photos and documents. These, she said, her finger pointing to a photo of his brother Charles, are just the beginning. Andrew leaned in, his pulse quickening as he saw the photos. His brother standing outside an unmarked building. In one, Charles was talking to a man in a dark suit. In another, they were shaking hands. The image looked like an exchange of something, though what exactly wasn't clear. Andrew's stomach churned. What is this? He demanded. These images were taken a week ago, the day after your father's will was read. They're not just casual meetings, Agent Park continued. I have reason to believe that your family has been involved in more than just financial manipulation. Andrew felt his body tense. What are you saying? That they've been planning something bigger? Park nodded slowly. Something much bigger. These meetings with this man, she pointed to a photograph of a man in a black suit, are part of a larger operation. I believe your family is being used as pawns in something much more dangerous. Andrew's mind raced. Who is he? He asked, desperate for answers. I've been tracking him for months, Agent Park said, her gaze fixed on the photograph. His name is Richard West. He's connected to an underground syndicate that's been laundering money through various businesses, and it looks like your family has been complicit in it. Andrew's blood ran cold. Laundering money? My family? This isn't just about power or money, Agent Park continued. It's much deeper. These people, they don't just stop with business. They control every part of the operation, and now they've got your family involved in it. Andrew tried to process the information, but the truth felt like it was spinning out of control. He had trusted his family, believed in their loyalty, in their shared goals. But now it seemed like his world was built on a foundation of lies. How long has this been going on? Andrew asked, his voice barely above a whisper, the weight of the truth sinking in. Years. Agent Park replied. And your family has been right at the center of it. Andrew's mind was a blur. The business dealings, the family dinners, the late nights discussing the future of Turner Enterprises, all of it now seemed like an elaborate ruse. His family hadn't been working together to build something lasting. They had been working in the shadows, playing a dangerous game with the syndicate. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Andrew asked, feeling a mix of frustration and betrayal toward Agent Park. Why wait until now? I couldn't, she replied, her voice tinged with regret. This is bigger than your family. I had to gather all the pieces before I came to you. But now they're moving fast. They're using you as leverage, Andrew. And if they succeed, you could lose everything, not just your company but your freedom too. Andrew's hands clenched into fists, his nails digging into his palms. What had they done to him? Everything I've built, he muttered under his breath. It's all been a lie. My own family. I can't trust them. Agent Park nodded. That's why you need to act quickly. We don't have much time. Before Andrew could respond, there was a sudden knock at the door. The sound echoed in the room, and Agent Park immediately stiffened, her eyes narrowing. Stay here, she whispered, slipping the folder into her bag. Whatever you do, don't open the door. Andrew stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Who could it be at this hour? Could it be his family coming to confront him? Or worse, someone else with a sinister agenda? The knock came again, louder this time, urgent. Andrew could feel his pulse in his throat. He needed answers, but he wasn't ready for whatever was about to happen. A second passed, and then a voice came from the other side of the door. Mr. Turner? The voice was familiar. It was his brother, Charles. Andrew felt a surge of anger flood his body. What was he doing here? Agent Park's eyes met his, a silent warning passing between them. Don't open it, she whispered again. But Andrew was already moving. Without thinking, he strode toward the door and swung it open. Andrew stood frozen in the doorway, his pulse racing. His brother, Charles, was standing there, an unreadable expression on his face. Behind him, the dim hallway seemed to stretch on forever, the air thick with the tension of unspoken words. Charles stepped into the penthouse, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a subtle unease. Andrew didn't wait for an invitation. I'm done with the games, Charles, Andrew said, his voice sharp and low. I know everything. About the money, the deals, and the lies. Charles didn't flinch, but there was something in his eyes that made Andrew's blood run cold. You've read the letter, haven't you? Charles said quietly, his gaze briefly flicking toward Agent Park. Andrew's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected Charles to be this calm, this composed, in the face of everything he had just learned. You knew? Andrew asked, his voice hoarse with disbelief. Charles nodded, his eyes not meeting Andrew's. I knew, but I didn't want to tell you. I wanted to protect you. Protect me? Andrew laughed bitterly, the sound echoing through the room. You've been using me, Charles. All these years you've been lying, stealing from me, and you call that protecting me? Charles sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not that simple, Andrew. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, Andrew snapped. You and the rest of the family have been plotting behind my back, and now it's too late to fix any of it. How long were you planning on keeping this from me? Charles remained silent for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was low and weary. We were never planning to keep it from you forever. But you were always so wrapped up in your business, so obsessed with making it bigger. We couldn't reach you. We couldn't tell you the truth. Andrew shook his head, his frustration building with every passing second. That's not an excuse, Charles. You've betrayed me. All of you. Andrew's words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The silence between them was deafening as Charles seemed to contemplate his next words carefully. I've been working with Richard West, Charles said finally, his voice barely audible. He's the one behind all of this. All of it. Andrew's heart skipped a beat. Richard West? The name sounded familiar, but he couldn't place it. His mind raced with the implications. Richard West. Andrew repeated, his voice shaky with disbelief. You've been working with a criminal? Charles didn't flinch, but Andrew could see the guilt in his eyes. It wasn't supposed to get this far, Charles admitted. At first we just needed money. Turner Enterprises was in trouble. The company was losing its edge and we couldn't let it go under. I thought we could just bend the rules a little. But Richard got involved and everything changed. He promised us more than we could imagine. More? Andrew's mind reeled. You've been embezzling money from the company? Doing illegal deals with him? It wasn't supposed to be like that, Charles said, his voice tight. But Richard had connections, resources. The more we gave him, the more he gave us in return. We thought we could control him. But we were wrong. He's bigger than anything we imagined. Andrew's breath hitched in his throat as the full weight of his brother's words hit him. His family hadn't just been making poor decisions. They had been involved in an entire criminal operation, one that stretched far beyond anything Andrew had ever suspected. So all of it, Andrew began, his voice shaking. The betrayals, the shady deals, the missing money, it was all because of him? Charles nodded, his face pale. I never wanted it to get this far. But once we were in, there was no way out. And now, it's too late. Andrew felt his head spin. His empire, everything he had built, had been tainted. His family, the people he had trusted, had sold him out for wealth and power. He felt sick to his stomach, the reality of what had been happening beneath the surface crashing down on him like a wave. I don't know how to fix this, Andrew muttered, his voice thick with emotion. The company's destroyed. I'm destroyed. Charles reached out, but Andrew stepped back, his anger too great to allow any kind of comfort. We have to stop him, Charles. We have to stop Richard West before he ruins everything. I tried, Charles said, his voice breaking. I tried to get out, Andrew. But Richard won't let me. He's too powerful. He's got people on the inside, people we trust. He's already made sure that no one can touch him. And now he's coming for you. Andrew's mind raced. Coming for me? What did that mean? Was Richard West about to make a move against him? What had they set in motion? As the gravity of the situation set in, Andrew's mind began to form a plan. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. He had to figure out how deep Richard West's influence reached, how far this web of corruption extended. But most importantly, he had to protect what was left of Turner Enterprises. I can't do this alone, Andrew said, his voice firm now. I need your help, Charles. If you're still my brother, if you still care about what we've built, you'll help me take Richard down. Charles met Andrew's gaze, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and fear. I'll do whatever it takes, he said. But we have to be careful. Richard has people everywhere. He's always watching. Andrew nodded, determination in his eyes. Then let's find out who's on his side and take them down one by one. Just as Andrew began to formulate his next move, there was a loud knock at the door. His hand instinctively went to his phone, ready to dial in his next move, but when the door opened, he wasn't prepared for what he saw. Standing in the doorway was Agent Park, the same investigator who had come to him before with her unsettling news. But this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a figure that Andrew immediately recognized, the man from the photos. Richard West himself. The room felt suffocating as Richard West stepped into Andrew's penthouse. The air, once filled with the usual calm and luxury, now felt thick with the weight of betrayal. Andrew's heart raced, and his thoughts tangled in a mess of confusion and anger. Standing there, in his own home, was the very man who had been orchestrating the destruction of everything Andrew had built. Richard West, a name that had been whispered in dark corners of the business world, stood before him like a specter. The man had connections, influence, and a network that Andrew had barely understood. But now, face to face with him, Andrew could feel the gravity of the situation. His empire wasn't just at risk, it was crumbling. Agent Park stood behind Richard, her face as unreadable as ever. Mr. Turner, Richard said smoothly, his voice carrying an air of calm arrogance. I think it's time we had a little chat about how all of this will end. I've been waiting for this moment. Andrew stood frozen, trying to read the man before him. Richard had an uncanny ability to remain composed, his eyes cold as they locked with Andrew's. The confidence was evident, the power in his presence undeniable. Andrew's anger boiled to the surface, but he kept his composure. Get out, Andrew said, his voice steady, though every fiber of his being screamed to act. Richard's lips curled into a smile. You don't get to tell me what to do, Andrew. Not anymore. Andrew took a step forward, trying to control the surge of emotions threatening to erupt. You've taken everything from me, he said, his voice low but full of authority. My family, my business, everything I worked for. And now you're here, expecting me to just stand aside. Richard remained calm, his eyes never leaving Andrew's. You don't understand, Andrew, Richard said, leaning forward slightly. You've been a pawn in this game from the very beginning. Your family, your company, they were just stepping stones for something much bigger. Andrew's pulse quickened. What do you mean? What's bigger than all this? Richard laughed, but there was no humor in it. Power. Control. What I've been working toward isn't just about money, Andrew. It's about reshaping the way the world works. And you, your family, they've been perfect tools to help me get there. Andrew's mind raced. You've been using my family all along? Richard nodded, his smile widening. Exactly. Your father, Eleanor, Charles, Lily, they were all part of the plan. They never had the loyalty you thought they did. A sick feeling crept into Andrew's stomach. The betrayal, the depth of the deception, was worse than he could have imagined. His own family had been manipulated, and he was just as much a pawn as they were. Agent Park stepped forward, breaking the heavy silence. Andrew, this goes beyond what you've heard. Richard isn't just a businessman. He's part of something far more dangerous. Andrew turned to Agent Park, his confusion turning into a surge of desperation. What are you talking about? Agent Park looked at Richard for a moment before continuing. Richard is not just a businessman with a few connections. He's the leader of a covert syndicate that operates globally. Their influence stretches far beyond the financial sector. They control governments, industries, and markets. And they use people like your family to do their bidding. Richard's eyes flashed with an unspoken threat, but he didn't interrupt. Andrew's mind reeled. This was bigger than he could have ever anticipated. Richard wasn't just a criminal mastermind. He was the head of an empire built on deception, manipulation, and control. And Andrew's family had been pawns in this game for years. So what now? Andrew asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. What do you want from me? Richard stepped closer, his tone turning colder. What I want is simple, your company. The empire you've worked so hard to build. You've been keeping it from me for too long, Andrew. But now it's time to make things right. You'll hand it over to me willingly, or I'll make sure it falls apart piece by piece. Andrew's chest tightened. He had worked his whole life for Turner Enterprises. It wasn't just a company, it was his legacy, his father's legacy. And now Richard wanted to take it from him. You think I'll just hand it over to you? Andrew asked, a dark laugh escaping his lips. You don't know me. You don't know what I'm capable of. Richard's gaze hardened. I don't care what you're capable of. I've seen everything you've done, and I've already neutralized your defenses. You've already lost, Andrew. The only question is how much of this empire you're willing to destroy before you realize it's over. Agent Park stepped forward, her voice firm. It's not just your company that's at stake, Andrew. Richard is coming after you. He's been orchestrating this for years, and now he's going to make sure you can't fight back. Andrew's world seemed to tilt as the weight of Agent Park's words hit him. He was trapped. Richard had already infiltrated every corner of his life, his business. There was no escape. The power and resources Richard controlled were too vast. I'm not going to let you win, Andrew said, his voice low but fierce. If it's a war you want, I'll give it to you. Richard chuckled, a cruel sound that sent a chill down Andrew's spine. It's not a war, Andrew. It's a game. And you've already lost. Andrew's hand trembled as he reached for his phone, his mind racing for any way to fight back. He needed help, but who could he trust? The people he thought he could rely on were already in Richard's pocket. His family, his closest allies, they were all part of this scheme. You'll regret this, Richard, Andrew said, his voice thick with emotion. I will fight you. I will take you down. Richard's expression softened, but it wasn't a friendly softness. It was the look of a predator who had already claimed his prey. You don't understand, Andrew, he said softly, almost condescendingly. This isn't something you can fight with anger or pride. It's a matter of survival. And in the end, only one of us will be left standing. Andrew's heart raced, his mind on the edge of panic. What was his next move? What could he possibly do to stop Richard now? Andrew's mind was reeling. His phone call with Agent Park had been filled with uncertainty, but now, as he stood in the living room of his penthouse, staring at the message from his mother, the truth hit him harder than any revelation before. She's gone. Gone? How could this be? Just hours ago they'd spoken, and now she was missing? His mother, the woman who had been the pillar of the Turner family, had disappeared without a trace. Andrew slammed his hand on the coffee table, sending a pile of paperwork scattering to the floor. This is too much. This has gone too far. Agent Park had already left, but her words echoed in his mind. Richard West's network of power had extended farther than he realized. His family had been deeply entrenched in it, his company had been manipulated, and now his mother was missing, likely taken by the very people who had already ruined everything Andrew had worked for. But why? What did Richard want with his mother? In a haze of confusion and urgency, Andrew called his family lawyer, Roger Hall, asking for an immediate meeting. Roger had been with the Turner family for decades, and if anyone knew what was going on, it would be him. The lawyer arrived at the penthouse just as the sun was setting, casting a dark red hue over the city skyline. Roger looked as calm as ever, his tailored suit perfect as always, but Andrew noticed the faint crease between his brows. It was the look of someone who knew something was wrong but didn't know how to explain it. "Andrew," Roger greeted, his voice low. "I'm here. What's happened?" "My mother's gone," Andrew said, pacing the length of the room. "She was supposed to meet me today, but she never showed. And now, this." He waved his phone at Roger. "What do you know?" Roger's eyes flickered to the message, then back to Andrew. "I can't say much, Andrew, but I know things have been going downhill fast. The deals, the money, the family, it's all intertwined in ways I never thought possible. And you're not the only one who's been played." "What do you mean?" Andrew stopped pacing and fixed his gaze on Roger, his eyes narrowing. "Who else is involved?" Roger paused, visibly uncomfortable, before speaking. "I've been handling your family's affairs for a long time, Andrew. I've seen things, heard things, but I never imagined it would come to this. Your mother, she might be involved in something deeper than you realize." Andrew's stomach turned. "His mother?" "Wait a minute," Andrew said sharply, taking a step toward Roger. "What are you implying?" "I'm saying that there are connections you're not seeing. Your mother was part of something. Not everything she did was above board. I've kept this from you, Andrew, because I thought it was just business, but now, with your family and Richard West involved, well, it's worse than I thought. Your mother was part of a deal, Andrew. A deal with West's people." Andrew felt his breath catch in his throat. He couldn't fathom it. His mother, a woman who had always been the moral compass of their family, was involved in shady dealings with someone like Richard West? "This deal," Andrew said, trying to steady his voice. "What kind of deal are you talking about?" Roger's gaze dropped to the floor, his voice low. "I don't know the full extent, Andrew, but I know it's been going on for years. Your mother made an agreement to protect the Turner family legacy. But I think it went further than she ever intended." Andrew stepped back, the ground beneath him feeling unstable. "No, that can't be true. She'd never." Roger raised a hand, interrupting him. "I'm sorry, Andrew. I wish I could tell you more. But the truth is, your mother made sacrifices. Big ones. Ones that are only now coming to light." Andrew's mind was spinning. What had she done? "She's gone, Roger," Andrew said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I don't know if she's coming back. I have to find her." Roger nodded. "I understand. But you need to be careful, Andrew. If West's people are involved, your mother may have made herself a target. This is bigger than any of us. You need to find her quickly." Andrew's chest tightened as he felt a sense of urgency flood his veins. His mother, the woman who had always been his protector, was now the one in danger, and he had no idea how to save her. That night, Andrew couldn't sleep. His mind was filled with questions that had no answers. His mother's disappearance was just one piece of a much larger puzzle, and he had no idea how to put it together. He knew Richard West was behind it all, his family's betrayal, the shady dealings, the stolen money. But why had his mother been involved? And what was her role in all of this? Andrew's thoughts raced through the night, and by morning, he had made a decision. He was going to find his mother. He couldn't trust anyone anymore, not Roger, not his family, not even Agent Park. This was his fight now, and he was going to take control. He grabbed his phone and dialed a number he hadn't thought of in years. Lily, his estranged sister. They hadn't spoken in months, ever since she had sided with Charles in the battle for control of Turner Enterprises. But Lily was family, and if anyone knew where his mother had gone, it would be her. "Hello." Lily's voice came through the line, hesitant but familiar. "It's me," Andrew said, his tone firm. "Where is Mom?" There was a long pause before Lily responded, her voice tight. "Andrew, I don't know. I haven't seen her. She's been distant lately. And I don't know what's going on. But you need to stay away from this. It's not safe." Andrew's heart skipped a beat. "Not safe? What did she mean?" "I'm not staying away, Lily," Andrew said, his voice hard. "I need to know where she is. Now." Another pause and then a whisper. "The office. She went there last night. She said she had something to finish. But she didn't come back." "Thanks, Lily," Andrew said, hanging up before she could say anything else. His heart pounded as he grabbed his coat and stormed out the door, heading for the Turner Enterprises office. He didn't know what he was walking into, but he had no choice. He couldn't wait. The mystery of his mother's disappearance, the criminal empire his family had become entangled in, and the fact that Richard West was pulling the strings, all of it had led him here. To the office. Andrew stood in the heart of Richard West's office, his pulse quickening as he stared across the massive mahogany desk at the man who had orchestrated the betrayal of a lifetime. Richard's cold, calculating eyes met Andrew's with the same air of superiority that had marked his every interaction. But today, something had changed. Today, Andrew had finally broken through the layers of deceit, the facade that Richard had so carefully crafted for years. Richard leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled together. He looked more amused than concerned, as if Andrew's words barely mattered. "I've learned everything, Richard," Andrew said, his voice calm but firm, every word punctuated with the weight of truth. "I know what you've done. I know the depths you've gone to manipulate my family, my company, and me. You used all of us as pawns in your game." Richard's smile faltered for just a moment, a flicker of discomfort flashing in his eyes before he regained his composure. "Andrew, you've always been naive. But you think that knowing the truth will change anything? You've already lost. I own everything you've built. Your company, your family, everything. You're just a man with nothing left to lose." Andrew clenched his fists at his sides. The pain of betrayal, of being manipulated by those closest to him, still gnawed at him. But it wasn't just anger that fueled him now, it was something far deeper, something Richard had underestimated. Andrew's will to fight for what was his. "You don't own me, Richard," Andrew replied, his voice low but resolute. "You've destroyed my family, but you haven't destroyed me. I'm going to take back everything you've stolen from me, and I'll expose you for who you really are." Richard's amusement faded, replaced by an icy smirk. "You don't know what you're dealing with. You think you can just walk in here and tear everything down? You're not even in the same league, Andrew." But Andrew wasn't listening to Richard anymore. The last few months had been a whirlwind of deceit, lies, and emotional manipulation. His own mother, the woman who had raised him to be a man of integrity, had been caught up in Richard's web, pulling the strings behind the scenes. And his sister. The one person he had trusted more than anyone else had turned against him, all in the name of power and control. He wouldn't let Richard get away with it. Not now. Not after everything he had lost. Just as Andrew was about to step forward and make his final move, a sound behind him made him stop. The door to Richard's office creaked open, and Andrew spun around, instinctively reaching for the gun in his holster. But his hands froze as his gaze landed on the figure standing in the doorway. His mother. The woman he had thought lost forever, the woman who had disappeared from his life months ago without a trace, was standing before him. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. She had been part of Richard's web, yes, but here she was, standing before her son, no longer hiding from the truth. "Mom?" Andrew whispered, his voice catching in his throat. "Where have you been?" She stepped into the room, her eyes briefly flickering to Richard before settling on Andrew. There was a sadness in her eyes that he had never seen before. It was as if the weight of everything she had done, everything she had allowed to happen, was finally sinking in. "I'm sorry, Andrew," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "I had no choice. I never wanted you to be part of this. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I failed you. Andrew took a step toward her, his heart aching. Protecting me? From what? From Richard? From our own family? His mother sighed, her shoulders slumping. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if I helped Richard, if I kept you in the dark, I could protect the family, protect you. But I was wrong. I see that now. The truth hit Andrew like a freight train. His mother, the one person he had always trusted, had been working with Richard all along. She had been part of the scheme, a willing accomplice in the manipulation and betrayal that had ripped his world apart. The pain of that realization twisted inside him, but there was something else too, anger. He wasn't angry at her for what she had done, but at the situation she had put him in, at the fact that his own family had betrayed him. So this was all a game to you, huh? Andrew asked, his voice trembling with emotion. You let Richard control everything, use me as a pawn, and now you expect me to just forgive you? His mother's eyes filled with tears. No, Andrew. I didn't want any of this. But I was scared. Richard, he's not just a businessman. He's dangerous. I didn't know how to get out of it. And then, by the time I realized what was really happening, it was too late. Andrew looked at her, his heart torn. She had never wanted this. He could see that now. But the fact that she had kept him in the dark, that she had let him be a part of Richard's plan, still stung. You should have told me, Andrew said quietly. You should have trusted me. She nodded, her face crumpling with regret. I know. I should have. But it was never that simple, Andrew. Richard had everyone in his pocket. He had power, influence, and I was just trying to protect you. I thought if I kept you safe, kept you away from the truth, everything would be okay. Andrew didn't respond. He couldn't. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. But as he looked at his mother, he knew that there was no going back. No matter what happened next, he had to do what was right. He couldn't keep running from the truth. Andrew's mind raced as he looked at the two people who had shaped his life, his mother and Richard. His entire world had been turned upside down by their actions, but now he had a choice. He could walk away, let it all fall apart, or he could fight. And fight, he decided, was what he would do. I'm going to take back everything, Andrew said, his voice firm. I'm going to take down everything you built, Richard. And I'll make sure the truth comes out. You don't get to control this family anymore. Richard's smile was gone now, replaced by a look of cold fury. You think you can take me down? You have no idea what you're up against, Andrew. I'm untouchable. Andrew stood tall. Not anymore. Not after everything you've done. Andrew left the room, determination burning inside him. He wasn't done. Not yet. Richard West may have had the power for now, but Andrew wasn't backing down. He wasn't going to let this be the end. He was going to expose Richard's lies, take down the empire he had built on the backs of innocent people, and take back what was rightfully his. As Andrew walked through the hallways of the building, a sense of clarity washed over him. This wasn't just about business. It was about family, loyalty, and integrity. And Richard West had destroyed all of that. But Andrew wasn't going to let him get away with it. Months passed, and Andrew's efforts began to pay off. With the help of trusted allies, he exposed Richard's criminal activities, his manipulation of the Turner family, and the decades of lies he had used to build his empire. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Richard's empire crumbled, and with it, the web of deceit he had spun for so long. Andrew's family came together, finally free from the shackles of Richard's control. Andrew took back the reins of Turner Enterprises, but it wasn't just about business anymore. He had learned the hard way that family, loyalty, and truth were the things that truly mattered. And with those, he would rebuild. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If you found this story captivating, trust me, the next one is even more thrilling and packed with twists you won't see coming. It's a roller coaster of emotions, and I promise you won't want to miss it. Go ahead, click on the image on your screen right now and treat yourself to the next chapter. It's just as sweet and even more unforgettable.